I don't think in this environment you can think more than 90, 100 days in the future, because it's going to be a totally different conversation. There's nothing worse for morale when you are ready to launch something and you look out and you're like, oh, well, no one's even talking about this topic anymore. And 3 other people have done it before us.
Yeah.
So
screaming into the void.
Exactly.
Welcome to the Animals Podcast. I'm Ty Magnan, the CEO at Animals.
And I'm Tim Mess, the Director of Marketing and Innovation at Animals.
This season on the Animals Podcast, we're focused entirely on AI content use cases, which means we're bringing you on an adventure to meet some AI pioneers, those venturing beyond the hype to succeed and sometimes fail spectacularly. Today, we're joined by Stewart Hillhouse. Stewart is just closing the chapter on a great run at Mutiny and is beginning a new journey as the VP of Content at StoryArb. Stu brings a lot of experience using AI, building out content programs that are AI enabled, and shares a lot about some of his best practices, tips and tricks about how to use AI, some real practical use cases, and some ideas on how to build a stronger, more AI-enabled content engine, I'd say. Stay tuned for everything that we're about to share. Did you know Animals now offers a podcast service? We're taking over your audience's earbuds, reaching them during their commutes, their workouts, or when they're doing chores around the house. From show strategy to editing and distribution, Animals can handle your podcast for you with that same originality and audience-first approach that we bring to all of our content. Every podcast episode can become fuel for your broader content program. You can mine your podcast for ideas for articles, social posts, and other kinds of content assets, helping you create more high-quality work in less time. Ready to start a podcast worth listening to? Head over to animals.co, book a call with us, and we'll start talking about your podcasting goals. We are here at last. Really excited for today's conversation. Stewart, you've got a lot to share around AI content, the future of content. I've always thought of you as a content marketer that thinks outside the box. You know, you're not someone that follows a lot of playbooks. You kind of make them. And then also you're generous to share, right? You're giving back to the community by kind of leaving some breadcrumbs along the way. So yeah, pleased to have you on today.
No, I appreciate that, Ty. I feel like maybe that stems from I don't feel like I'm a marketer yet, and I'm still proving myself. And so that's why I maybe do stuff that doesn't seem orthodox or isn't the traditional playbook. And then I'm sharing it because I'm I don't know how else to brand myself. So I got to share it.
Somebody validate me.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding. Well, tell us about that path that you've taken into content.
Yeah, I mean, my first career was in forestry. So I was not sitting at a laptop. That was sort of my, first thing coming out of school. But very quickly realized that being in the woods is great, but if you're going to be in forestry, you have to live where the trees are. And I wanted to live in a little bit more of a city. So turned around and tried to figure out how I could get a laptop job. And I kind of didn't really have a marketing background at all. Hadn't taken any courses, maybe read a couple Seth Godin things in passing, but really had no exposure to the marketing or business world. But I knew that podcasting was something that I was interested in. I would listen to podcasts. This is circa 2016. So a very different podcast ecosystem, but there was still people were oh man, we're saturated with podcasts. And it's 10 years later, it's still the main medium right now. And so I was well, maybe I'll just try figuring out how to do this on my own. So I started up a Zoom call with people. I would just cold outreach on LinkedIn, people who are marketers who had cool job titles or worked at cool companies. And I would just start making it up as I went and literally learned on the go, learn the language of marketing by being in these interviews where I got to interview them instead of me being interviewed for marketing jobs. But in hindsight, what ended up happening was I actually found out what roles within marketing I did and did not like, because I got to kind of ask them about their day-to-day and what gets them excited. It was ads seem cool. And then you talk to an ad person, I'm I don't really think ads are what they look like. They're not what they used to be in Mad Men. And then you go and talk to brand marketers and you're okay, that's really cool, but you don't really, it's hard to get your foot in the door as a brand marketer. You need to start somewhere else and then you can move into that. And eventually one of the people I was interviewing was hey, can I hire you to do some content for me? And I was why? They're like,
Content, what's that?
Yeah, exactly. Content. What is? They're like, you're doing that right now. And I was like, oh, that was a light bulb moment for me to be like, oh, I guess I naturally like talking with people, and that turns into content down the road. So that was sort of my first realization that gathering source material is the best way to create content because it feels natural to the way I do it. Some people are better at just pulling ideas from their head and writing them down straight away. But my method was like, I like talking to people, and then sometimes I say something smart, or sometimes they say something smart, and that becomes the nugget for the marketing that I'll do afterwards.
Other times you're just talking. So Stewart, you just closed a pretty epic chapter at Mutiny. How many years, and what are some of your favorite content projects that you produced at Mutiny?
Yeah, I was head of content at Mutiny for 3 years. Got to see the epic growth going from, I think I joined right as they were Series A, and then raised a big round, and then grew headcount and got to go through the rocket ship startup story. And then like AI came on the scene. So like I've gotten like in those 3 years, every year was bookmarked as like a hugely different year, from like a growth year to like a scaling year to then an AI year. So I think I felt really fortunate to be at that team that was really, I felt like a very strong go-to-market team, and our product also stood the test of time as well. So tough to leave, but the big things that sort of stuck out for me was we really doubled down on the notion of like, everyone is doing their marketing job. Like we're running ads, we're doing ABM, we're doing content, we're doing outbound, and they're working, but they're all working at a baseline run rate. And they're not like growing super quickly the way that you need to when you need to hit those like big growth numbers. And so we kind of created this concept of like 1 + 1 = 3 type campaigns, where it's like, okay, on our own, we can only generate so much demand through our channels, but what if we all talk about the exact same thing at the exact same time and create like an integrated campaign every quarter? So it's not a novel or new idea, but it is a tricky one to execute on, especially when you're kind of building the plane as you're flying it. And so that was sort of like our big impact on the market. Was we ran a bunch of cool campaigns. One was called Survivor, which was circa 2022, right when like ChatGPT got good, and everyone was actually like, oh, okay, it's in my hands, and now it's real, and now I have to learn how to use this thing. And so we were really quick on the draw to be like, okay, let's throw together a series of marketers from different professions and ask them how they could use ChatGPT. And then we created, a series of videos that you could watch, but then we dripped them out like a TV show, and we wrapped it as like a Survivor, the game show type event, and gave people prizes for showing up to a bunch of episodes. There was actually like tactical AI workshops that you could do afterwards to get more points. And we gave away like $10,000 in cash plus a whole bunch of prizes to a bunch of people. And so we had close to 10,000 participants, and then we were able to measure it, and it drove like millions of dollars in pipeline for the company. So we kind of had this like thesis of like, if we do something all together and run ads and do ABM and do content about the same topic under the same wrapper, then people will take more notice. And something we found out afterwards that was interesting was it actually increases that always on content and marketing baseline after the fact. So like once that campaign's over, let's say you were doing 100 a month, now you're doing like 125 a month, doing the same stuff, launch it, like ramping up for your next campaign. So it had this like rising tide effect for across all channels, which I found really fascinating.
Yeah, that was an awesome campaign. I remember seeing it. It was also really timely, right?
The timeliness, I think, is really something that a lot of teams miss. They try to plan out a year in advance, and they look backwards and try and get the quarterly cadence right to be like, okay, is this strategic narrative the right one for this quarter? I don't think in this environment you can think more than 90, 100 days in the future, because it's going to be a totally different conversation. There's nothing worse for morale when you like are ready to launch something and you look out and you're like, oh, well, no one's even talking about this topic anymore, and 3 other people have done it before us.
Yeah.
So
Screaming
I think
into the void.
Exactly. Like we're already doing that. So to ride a wave is always going to be easier, but you need to time it well. And just based on like speed to execution, you kind of need to do it quickly. So I think you should like bookmark, 3 big campaigns for 2025, but you should only be focusing on the one that you're going to launch in March or, 3 months from now, you shouldn't be thinking about the one you're going to do this summer yet.
Nice.
That's nice. And I also like, and I think that's even more true in the the volume of content and messages going up with AI, that you need to get everybody focused and talking about the same thing at the same time, because it's so hard to get people's attention. So that's the only way to kind of have a chance of getting their attention. I think it's a very important, very simple, but very important principle also for this age.
Yeah. I mean, it just reminds people, like, if you let's say you're talking about AI agents, that's the topic you want to talk about for this next step campaign. From the perspective of a prospect, like, everyone's talking about AI agents. But if you get, still in the mind of a prospect, you see something casually on LinkedIn, you're scrolling and you see the CEO mention AI agents. Okay, whatever. That's cool. Then you get a cold email from a BDR that mentions AI agents. And then you see an ad for AI agents. And then you get invited to like a webinar about AI agents. Like, that is a more encompassing experience. And eventually you're going to be like, oh, I'm associating that brand with AI agents. It becomes like a pull instead of a push type motion for them.
So Stu, you are turning the chapter, turning the page. What do people say? You're starting a new role on Monday. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'll be joining the agency StoryArb as VP of content. So they've got a great team set up over there. And we're really focusing on the newsletter and the kind of narrative editorial style content world. I was never an AI or an SEO content marketer. I never really hung my hat on that at all. I always, thrive doing the on topic, on demand, like, weekly newsletter, because it became my letter from the editor. You remember in magazines, like in the front, it said like,
of course,
it was like a letter from the editor.
They're still there, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So it was cool because it was talking about what was interesting that month in the world. Again, back to this concept of being timely. But it also would naturally mention the stories that were written about in that edition. And I think that is what really good modern content marketing looks like, is you need to have a strong point of view, you need to have a strong voice, and you need to talk about the things that are relevant to your audience that are outside of your product. But you need to really naturally be able to transition into, hey, but if you are interested in our product, go check this thing out. Oh, if you are, in the early stages of consideration, here's a workbook you can do, or like something interactive. So there's like all these opportunities to do that. And I think that still, like, email is the best way to get people's attention in that mindset. I think that any B2B business can really nail a newsletter in their industry, in their vertical, because frankly, I don't think that many people are doing them super well.
I agree with you, right? The email newsletter audience or market is still a little untapped. It's like long too, like I don't think it's going anywhere fast. Let's talk a little bit about AI usage. You've got some hacks, some tips, some tricks. We had the privilege of tuning into your podcast episode over on 95% Content with Eric that gave me some ideas. I actually ripped one of them off. So I want to start with one tip I ripped from Stu that you can now rip from me and give me credit for as if I made it up. And then we'll go forward with some other tips. So the one that I really liked was this idea of like creating a voice and a tone for a person. At Animals, we do some like LinkedIn thought leadership programs for founders. And so this comes up a lot. Like, how do you figure out what a founder's voice is? And I used to like take the example art posts or, things that they've written and like feed it into Claude or whatever we're using, and then like use that as the basis. Mm-hmm. But what you did was slightly different. You took those same assets, you fed it in, and you said, give me a prompt for this person's voice. Mm-hmm. And then you use that prompt within your future prompts. I thought that was brilliant. I've used it. I think it does work a little better. It's like easier, to just like copy, paste, and run with. That was a good one. So the question is, what else you got for us, Stu?
Wow. I mean, that was my it. That was it. That was what I was gonna ring the bell on for the next year. So I guess I got to come up with something new. The hack behind the hack there is don't write your own prompts. AI is always going to write it faster and more detailed than you ever could. Give it an example of something you like, and then reverse engineer it. Ask it to reverse engineer it for you. Say whatever you like about it, and you can fine tune it a little bit. Like, let's say we're talking about thought leadership. It's like, There, you read a post by Ty, and you're like, I like Ty's tone, but I want to, obviously include my own, but I like the way he structured it. You just copy and paste it, put it into your AI, and say, I really like how he structured this. I want to be a little more punchy in the intro, and I want to be a little more salesy at the end, because you're not salesy at all. So I want to turn up the salesy and get people to do something at the end of my post. Write me a LLM prompt that will do that. And it will spit out something, and then you just try it a couple times and then start fine tuning what it's written for you. But that would have taken you like hours to kind of come up with, make it witty, but not clever, make it, whatever, you don't know what you don't know. And the AI's job is now just to like fill in the blanks for you. And this works in any use case. So like, I no longer write all my own prompts. I just say, here's what I'm trying to do. If you have an example, it's even better. Create an LLM prompt for me, and that becomes the starting point.
Makes sense too. Like the LLM knows itself, one would hope, or maybe not hope. It's a little scary of a thought. So like asking it to write its own prescription, smart.
But it's all like, we're all testing the waters anyways. Like a writer doesn't know that their voice is going to hit until they've published, right? And so even if the AI comes up with a wonky answer, if you'd hired a writer or you were writing it yourself, you would have come up with wonky drafts as well. So it's like, we kind of get mad at it because it doesn't give us the perfect result the first time. It's like, neither do you. So like, remember that when you're working with AI, that it's just giving you a draft. Now it's your job to refine it and make it perfect in the way you want it to be. I kind of see us now as more like, we're not accredited, but like engineers and doctors, they need to like sign off on their work. I think of like, marketers now need to think of it in that way, where it's like, it's still going out with your stamp of approval. Yeah. So whether it's AI or not, you still need to be the final person to look at it and say, I'm proud that this is going out on my company account. I'm proud that it's going out on my personal account. This is content that I'm happy with.
Totally agree. I used to use this metaphor of like, I probably stole it from someone. So like everything, shout out to whoever I took this from, but the creative team ought to operate like a kitchen, right? You have like your head chef, and then you have line chefs, right? Or something like this. I actually haven't worked in a kitchen, but like there's a line of people doing stuff, right? And like the head chef has to like taste the soup before it goes out and be like, oh, this is good. This is good soup. It can go out now to the tables. And so what you're saying is like, yeah, like a content marketer needs to be that head chef, right? Yeah. Does this soup taste right? Is it balanced? Whatever. Because they are accountable for it at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got one quick AI tip that I've been kind of chunking on is just like using it to help mash together things that maybe should have never mashed together. I'll give an example in a sec, but like that takes a lot of brain power when you as a creative person, it's like, okay, I have this deliverable. So it's like, it's clear to me what I need to deliver on. And then there's very strict lines of how to paint within it. And you need to kind of like use your brain within those constraints to like give the thing that you're trying to do. And so there's very little room for like, well, what if I learn something new this week? How do I like inject that into my deliverable? What I've started doing is using AI is I have very concrete formats. So like my LinkedIn structure, for example, I'm like, here, I want it to have this type of a hook for these number of sentences. And I want it to go into something actionable and tactical. Then I want it to summarize a little bit of a thing and whatever. So you give it like these structure formats, but then you just like feed it more than is necessary and see what happens. And so an example is like, if you're on a website and there's like a paragraph that you read and you're like, wow, that was really sharp copywriting, just like screenshot it, throw in this screenshot, throw in your blurb that you like thought about on the spot, and then like write a LinkedIn post about this and include sharp copywriting like this. And you'll just get like cool results. And try to be multimodal. And what I mean by that is like, most people kind of just try to type into their AI, but like send it voice memos, like record yourself jamming on a topic for 30 seconds, send screenshots of websites, send YouTube videos, like just feed it random stuff and be amazed by what you'll get out on the other side. You just need to kind of give it guardrails in the shape of a structure in order for the output to be something that's usable versus just like, 1,000 words that are like, cool, but I'm definitely not publishing this.
Yeah, that's really nice. And something to try. Are there other guardrails that you recommend, or other checks and balances you have in place to keep your tone and to get the output that you want?
There's 3 sort of foundational guardrails that I've found if you're trying to get repeatable results from your AI. And this applies to Claude, this applies to ChatGPT, this applies to, what's the new one? DeepSeek. Like it'll apply to all of them as long as they continue to operate in the way that they currently operate, is you need to give it a structure prompt. And so that is a specific outline of what you want the finished result to look like from a structure point of view. Simply like, how many paragraphs? How big do you want the paragraphs to be? Like, where do you mention the product? Give it these like very granular details about what the structure of it is. You should do this for every single piece, every single format that you're publishing. So LinkedIn from a company page is going to have a different structure than a LinkedIn from a personal page. Is going to have a different structure than a SEO blog. Is going to have a different structure from a narrative blog. So like, take an inventory of all the formats that your company's putting out, and then using our previous tip, feed examples that you've already created and say, what is the structure of this content?
Nice.
And it'll give you that prompt. So that's prompt number 1 is structure. Prompt number 2 is style, which is then, style/voice, which is sort of a culmination of your company's existing content. Like every writer, whether you're in-house or an agency or a freelancer, you're given a voice template of like, here's the style I want you to write in if you're going to write for a company. And like every writer glances at it and they might like refer back to it, but they're not writing every sentence thinking about that document. But guess what? AI is. So give it like a really detailed one. Again, feed it a whole bunch of existing blog posts, existing newsletters, and say, here is our voice. Describe it such that an LLM will understand, and it'll give you a really detailed prompt. So now you've got voice, you've got structure, and then the last one is where you start actually putting in your company's like information. So this is where you're going to give it like your competitive intelligence. You're going to give it some product descriptions. You're going to give it the high level narrative about what the company does. You're going to give it some strategic narratives. So like, what are the 3 topics that surround your business? Like, what are the $1 billion problems that you're trying to solve? How does your problem solve all those? Again, give it like this huge strategic narrative doc about all the things that you know about your company. The combo of those 3 things now runs in the background for every prompt you run through Claude or ChatGPT. Since they've introduced this concept of like projects, and in ChatGPT, I think they're called projects in both Claude and ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You just upload those as docs, and now every chat you have with the AI is going to take that into consideration. So now all you need to say is, write me a LinkedIn in the company voice, and here's a few notes about this concept I want to explain to you. And then you can just give it like really unstructured gunk, either a voice note or just like free thought writing for 2 minutes. And then it'll take that really early draft, take all the context it knows about your company and your voice and your structure, and give you like a way better draft than you would have if it was just a out of the box ChatGPT prompt. So that's how I think about like creating those guardrail prompts that will always kind of like bring it back to reality. And then you come in with just like unstructured ideas and cool inspiration, and it will figure out the happy medium.
It's great. And then copy paste, you're done, right?
Plus a little bit of random shit.
Like I've had to reconfigure my entire role and what tasks a content marketer is now in charge of since it got good. Like 2 years ago, I was like, oh, I'm still a better writer than AI. And then 3.5 came out and I'm like, I'm no longer a better writer, and it can do it instantaneously. So therefore I need to figure out where I sit in the flow of creating content, because it's still a workflow, but now our tasks within that have changed drastically, I think.
Can you take us a little deeper there? Did it change the way that you, managed freelancers? Did it change like the way you collaborated internally? Tell us a little bit more about that, if you will.
I think the biggest one was like, I really liked the act of creating, and I liked writing, And that was sort of my competitive advantage, was like, oh, apparently I'm a faster and a little better writer than my colleagues. Therefore, they put me as the content guy. So I was like, that was my thing that I hung my hat on for a while. So now just think of like AI as being like another colleague that is better and faster than you. So you're like, okay, well, shit, that means I need to like up level and move up or move out kind of thing, right? So that's on the content creation side. Until you've like moved from a independent contributor role to a managerial role in a content org, you don't realize how much content is actually just operations. You're just moving information from here to there. You're making sure that we're hitting deadlines. You're making sure that we're measuring it, and then you're reporting on it. And then someone else is going to do the actual task of creating content. That was sort of like the biggest place, was like, okay, let me use this crazy thing that I don't know how it works. But somehow if I just give it a little bit of information, it can just spit out a 80% done version of what I needed. So an example was like, content briefs are just like the bane of my existence. Like, it's so annoying. I may as well just write it myself. That was my perspective 2 years ago. Now it's like, write me a content brief. Here's some inspiration. Here's like existing prompts, and it just like writes the brief for you. So it's like things like that, where it turned a lot of the admin part of content into templates and formulaic stuff. And it freed up my time to be the narrator on top of it, to be like, does this match our strategic narrative? Is this something that's cool right now? Is this like topical and helpful for our audience? So I think everyone can kind of think of it that way, just like try to find tasks that it can free up, so you can think then about the company level strategy versus the content level like execution.
Nice. And I also hear like you're the formula builder, right? And that's an important part of the role. You have talked about these different roles within the future of content marketing, right? With AI, you talk about the personality marketer, the AI content operator, and the campaign director. Can you unpack those roles a little bit?
Yeah, totally. The first one is personality marketer. And I didn't use influencer on purpose because I don't think that renting an influencer in the B2B space is as impactful as it is in the direct to consumer space. You know, like you see a cute girl with a golf driver and you're like, well, I'm obviously want the driver she has. In B2B, it's like a much longer buying cycle, and it's not about direct response. It's about like trust building and becoming the preferred brand over time, so that when someone is in a buying position, they're going to think about your brand first. I think that the personalities of the faces of your company should be in-house people. And they need to be people who are doing stuff like this. Like I'm not saying you need to like launch really high production TV, like shows. I don't think you need to do like TikTok style skits. You just need to have people's face in the feed, in the newsletter, and on video as much as possible, so that they build that affinity with the audience over time. But it plays two roles. One, it's going to stand out just because you become a person, and then that person, becomes a little bit more trustworthy than just like the logo of your company. But that person also then becomes a gatherer of source material. They're just out in the wild having conversations, recording it, and those transcripts now feed your entire content operation because you're giving it all this fresh insight that AI can't generate. That's the thing it can't do right yet, is just like come up with interesting things on the fly. Like it can, but it's probably going to be wrong and it might be outdated or whatever. That's why in order to remain like in the know, you need to have people chatting with other people who are in the know. And that becomes the backbone of all of the content topics that you cover. So you've got this personality marketer. Now they've got these transcripts. Where do those transcripts go? They need to then go into a workflow that includes AI, automations, writers, editors, and then designers to make it look really good and get it out in the wild. So that's why I think there's going to be a AI content operator role, where they're going to be in charge of the plumbing, and they're going to make sure that the information is moving where it needs to. It's kind of like an augmented operations role. You're going to continuously be trying to like shorten the lead time so that it can happen like as quickly as possible, so that you can be like putting stuff out as soon as it's recorded, so you can be like on topic every single day. But that's like, that creates the content, like we're not getting off the content hamster wheel in any way by doing that, right? We're actually like accelerating it.
Yeah.
So that's why I think the third role is this campaign director role who is thinking in those quarterly campaigns and is noticing like macro trends and is then curating the insights that you're generating on that day-to-day always on content and working with the team to then create these like more narrative, like drawn out, more interesting, weavy stories that you then share across mediums. And guess what? That campaign is getting fed in the ear of the personality marketer, and that personality marketer is now seeding questions that align with the campaign that's going to launch in 30 days. So you actually, by doing that, are getting off the content hamster wheel because you're always on content, meaning just like your daily LinkedIn posts, your, just the stuff that just goes out every day to keep the lights on. That can be pretty much outsourced to a very fine-tuned proprietary like AI thing that you've built. Whereas then if now freed up all the team to dedicate at least 50% of their time towards like that bigger campaign. And so that's where I see the nuance of like what a future content team looks like is it's all feeding each other and you're not working and just like on this one piece. The pieces are kind of like coming together with the help of AI. And then you as a team are coming up with the bigger like picture of what's going on, how your company fits in the bigger story.
I dig it. I think the personality driven piece resonates. Like definitely see the increase in importance there, relationship based selling or what have you. And the second one, the AI operator, like for sure, someone that's responsible for the equation, the plumbing, like we're definitely seeing that and investing in that in animals.
I see the campaigns also. We've kind of been doing it by accident, but not as structured as you are talking about it.
I've got a highly experimental question here, Stu. So
yeah, I'm willing to try.
In prepping for this podcast, Tim was running a whole bunch of stuff that you've said and done through Claude or whatever AI tool.
Various AI models too.
Yep.
O1 and Claude. Yeah.
Wow. You got the full treatment here. And it spat out a question that when we were prepping for the show, Tim and I were both like, the hell? Like, did you make this up? So we have no idea where it came from.
Hallucination or a real question? Yeah.
So you'll have to tell us if this question actually resonates and then answer it if it does. Or tell us if it's total BS. Okay. Here's what we got. The open source target account list campaign you ran at Mutiny is fascinating. What inspired that level of transparency? And how did you measure its success beyond just pipeline metrics?
Yeah. A little backstory.
Wait, is this a real question?
So it's real? Question? It's real?
Rate my question.
Wow. Yeah, that's a campaign we ran. So that's so cool that it was able to find that it's hidden somewhere and then extrapolate on it and then like ask, how do you measure success other than pipeline? I don't think you should be measuring success in any other way other than pipelines. So
right. Yeah, that's a silly part of the question. Fair.
No, I mean, there's nuance there, but I genuinely, okay, so here's the whole backstory. And
what is an open source target account list campaign? I'm very curious.
Yeah. So at Mutiny, we are selling a marketing tool to marketers. And I happen to be the content marketer there. So it became very meta where I'm just like, I'm marketing to marketers about marketing by marketing to them. And so we kind of leaned into this concept of like breaking the fourth wall. And that was always our thesis with our content was like, let's just talk to them because they know what's happening. Like they know they're on the newsletter. They know they're in a nurture cycle. They know they're getting ads at them. We can't do anything to like surprise them other than being so transparent that you have to pay attention. So we kind of experimented that over time and validating that yes, people are interested in our playbooks, are interested in our webinars where we go behind the scenes. So screw it. Let's just share our entire target account list as we roll out into an ABM motion, right?
Wild. Like literally like you share names and email addresses or like at least names and positions?
Well, we did it at the
company level.
Account level.
Okay.
And so we literally put up a database, like a landing page with a searchable database that had every single, I think there are 5,000 companies that are perfect customers from Mutiny.
Wow.
You can scroll through it. And when you click on one of them, so here's where it turns into like an interesting product play is, let's say Airtable was one of them. You click on Airtable, it then takes you to a page that is completely personalized for Airtable using Mutiny. So the idea was when a person from Airtable lands on that page and clicks it, they're going to be like, wow, this is really cool. The whole page is personalized to Airtable. I wonder how they did that. And we say, oh, we did it using Mutiny. And they're like, okay, cool. I get it. I get, like, it was an aha moment in the marketing versus like an aha moment in the product demo. And then that became sort of, that was our campaign. So now then we did follow-up web, like, you know, eating our own dog food. We then did content around how we built this campaign, content around how we built our target account list, content on how we use Mutiny to build this page, and like all the stuff. Like it fills your calendar really quickly when you come up with an interesting campaign theme. And then you don't need to like worry about what are we going to publish next week, because it like waterfalls and you're like, oh, there's so many things I can talk about.
Yeah.
And so that one was cool because it then ties content exactly to pipeline, because you can see, I think we just did it using UTM parameters. So nothing even fancy. When was a meeting booked using this page? And if so, what was the source? Therefore, we can see that like these meetings from these target accounts booked a meeting by clicking on a piece of content and seeing their page and then booking the meeting. So I think that's sort of the thing that the content and marketing is going to need to get better at, is account-based marketing is sort of, you know, making a resurgence and needs to be part of your core strategy. Like, you don't need to be doing top of funnel stuff. If you know that you only have 5,000 perfect accounts, don't do broad reach SEO, just go after those 5,000 people. And so that was sort of my thinking. And I'm excited to see as people do more of that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, listen, what kind of content are you enjoying lately?
I go through like waves of where I don't listen to podcasts, and then all of a sudden I just crush them. So I'm in the crush phase where I've got them ripping at like 1.7 times, and I'm like out with the dog, I'm at the gym, I'm in the car, like whenever I have a second, I throw earpods in and listen. But I've been trying something new, because sometimes there's just like, it's like, oh, that's a really cool episode, but I just don't have the time. You know, there's no way to listen to all of them at once. A little sneaky hack. I haven't been able to figure out how to do this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, but if the podcast publishes on YouTube, you go into YouTube and then you somewhere in the menu, you can find the transcript. And I literally copy and paste the transcript of a 2-hour long podcast, dump it into ChatGPT and say, here's a challenge I'm having at work or in my personal life, or a thing I'm trying to figure out. Are there any insights in this podcast that were mentioned that could help me solve this? Give me a timestamp. And if there's not, don't make something up. Just tell me, no, this podcast was not relevant. And it'll just like do it. And it'll give me the timestamps of where to go and listen to it. Huh. And if not, it just says, no, this episode has nothing that can serve you at this moment. And I'm like, great, I didn't need to listen to that anyways.
Dang, what a time saver. That's great. I mean, when you read a book or like you hear something that like is helping you with that problem that you're struggling with, like, oh, it feels so good, right? But so often I'm like reading a book and I kind of get bored and I can't figure out why I'm like taking so long to get through this thing. And the answer is like, well, it's not like right book, right time for me. You know?
I'm really interested in the future when someone finally figures out this like second brain concept, where you just have like, you know, we're reading stuff all day, we're looking at stuff all day, we're podcasting all day. This repository of this general information that we've consumed, I'm so excited for when I can just be like living my life, and all of a sudden I get a little AI notification being like, hey, there's actually a framework that you highlighted in a book 7 years ago that is actually going to be really helpful for solving this problem you're currently doing. Like, that's going to be super cool.
It's really close. I think you can kind of do that with Notion already, but you have to be proactive about it in a way. But like,
exactly.
Yeah, but I think that's coming. I think that's the personal AI agents, right? That just tell you like, you should now be reading this, or like, you should not be listening to this. Yeah. It's not that far off, I think.
We should wrap up this episode. Stuart, it's been great having you. Thanks so much for coming on to share a little bit about your own AI experience, taking us a few steps further in our own understanding of it. And, you know, wish you best of luck at StoryArb. We'll have you back on maybe in the future.
And where should people follow you?
You know, you got to commit to one channel, and LinkedIn's my spot. So definitely hit me up on LinkedIn and say hi and let me know that you came from this episode. I'd love to chat with more marketers.
Lovely.
Thanks, Stuart.
Woo! Another great episode. What'd you learn?
The first thing I take away is like, I love his creativity and just like having fun in his marketing, right? It's not necessarily AI related, but it sounds like, this is awesome. Like these kind of ideas, like we've done a little bit of those kind of things, but I think that's the ideal, right? Like AI frees you up to be able to thinking about this kind of stuff and do fun campaigns and cool stuff that's not the same as what everybody else is doing.
For sure. Yeah, I opened with that point of like, this is what I admire about Stewart. At least that's one big thing I admire about Stewart. He kind of opened the aperture for me around this point of not writing your own prompts.
Yeah.
I think that's just like smart and easy. I think that the market's coalescing around kind of like the layers at which you need to prompt the AI in order to get a good output for content. And those layers being something like, it's like, there's like a brand kit or like a brand style, right? There's like company context, product, market, whatever. And then there's like the actual source material that you're pouring into that thing. And there's also the structure of the output, right? So is it a blog? Is it a LinkedIn? Is it a whatever? I'm starting to see that enough in our conversations on this podcast and in other research outside of it. That makes me feel pretty confident that like that's the right way to use Gen AI.
Yeah, that was a takeaway for me as well. Like, I think I've been focused on the style part of like use this as a reference, but not enough on like, I just kind of say, okay, here's the style and it's kind of what I want. Now start writing instead of really being much more specific about like, indeed the intro needs to be this long and then there needs to be this many sections and whatever.
You end up editing more if you don't, right? At least that's how I find. Like I get a crappy LinkedIn post and I'm like, it's just like isn't punchy or formatted or has a good hook. But like I haven't told it my opinion on what a good hook looks like, or what punchy looks like.
The other thing, what he touched on, and I think has actually broader implications that I was also thinking about before, is like, he was like, for example, a style guide for a writer, right? He's like, before a writer would glance at it, but then he just goes off or he or she goes off and just writes, right? But he said now that document really is valuable. And I think that's with a lot more documents, right? If you have your company values or you have your strategic plan, it's a similar thing. Like, it's like, it's good to go to the exercise, but then very often those documents then just gather dust, right? Whereas now you can always insert them into whatever you're doing. So making those documents actually becomes more valuable because you can always make the AI aware of it.
Definitely. It's like AI can play a role almost like a compliance manager to make sure that you're on tone or make sure that you're on message, whatever that is. And that is hugely valuable. It's hard to keep, an army of teammates or freelancers or whoever you're working with on tone and on message, right?
Yeah, I just feed the machine, right? It's like, it kind of came back, like, get everything, right? Like, get people talking to people, but record it, like, take stuff from here, take stuff from there, just feed it into it. That's how you get, like, interesting output.
Definitely. Well, I'm personally really excited to do a few more episodes. I feel like we are starting to, see the forest from the trees pretty well. A couple more at-bats, we can maybe round this thing out. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe we need to open source our target guest list.